Remembrance Day. Let's reflect more now with former Australian Army officer James Brown. He's former New South Wales RSL president. He's the chairman of Invictus Australia. James, great to see you. Of course, your day job is CEO of the Space Industry Association. I think, though, we focus today on Remembrance Day. For you, as chair of Invictus, what's happening on that front in terms of veterans and their involvement?
Well, we were thrilled a couple of weeks ago to launch Invictus Australia. It's the first Invictus organisation to take root outside of London, where Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, started that movement a few years ago. Invictus Australia works with the Australian Defence Force to make sure that not only do we fund, train, support and nurture the teams that go to the Invictus Games, the next one of which is in The Hague next year, but also runs grassroots sporting programs for the veterans community all across Australia in partnership with major sporting codes. So it's a fantastic charity that gets veterans into sport and makes sure that our sporting community can connect with veterans. And those communities will be pausing today to reflect on the service and sacrifice of so many Australians for our national security. So it's great to be launching Invictus at this time of the year.
So before we reflect more broadly on Remembrance Day, how competitive are the Invictus Games in terms of veterans taking it really seriously and getting into it?
Look, sadly, Kieran, we've got large numbers of wounded, injured and ill veterans who are all eligible to compete in the Games, both serving and ex-serving. So the team that we'll send to The Hague next year will have 26 ex-serving that we directly fund and support, as well as 6 currently serving ADF personnel. Not everyone can get into the team, and the competition is fierce. So we run national selections to get down to those final chosen few. And of course, part of our responsibility is to make sure that we've got activities in a community and programs for those that don't make it into the Invictus Games, who don't make it into that final 32. So it is fierce, it is competitive, and as you'll remember from watching the Games 3 years ago in Sydney, all of the competitions are fiercely and passionately fought, and that's part of what makes this such a special Games and such a special international movement.
Now let's look at Remembrance Day and reflect on a few things. Today is the 80th anniversary of the foundation, the opening of the Australian War Memorial, and I just saw some very interesting vision there, James Brown. I wanted to get your reflections on it. We heard the narrator from that historical vision saying that friends of Australia lay wreaths, and here's the Japanese ambassador. That was on November 11, 1941. We're at war with them December 7. It shows you the precarious nature of peace, doesn't it?
Look, it does. It's not something that comes easy. It's not something that's automatic. It happens through the hard work of our military. It happens through the hard work of our aid workers and our diplomats, and they're doing that every day. I mean, behind closed doors all across Canberra and across the country, there are people working on behalf of Australia to keep us at peace. And today is the day that we remember what an important national project that is and what the consequences are when it doesn't work. I mean, the poignancy of what you just mentioned then, the fact that friends who we'd gone to war with in the First World War became enemies in the Second World War, just shows you how tenuous international relations can be. We've got to work at it every day. And, you know, it's fantastic to see that Australia is taking defence seriously, that we're funding it appropriately, and that we're putting some of our smartest and most critical thinking into making sure that this country is secure.
Matt Anderson, the director of the War Memorial, gave a powerful speech today at the national event in commemoration. He said, "We do not gather to glorify war." I'll just read a bit of this speech. He says, "Indeed, at our opening 80 years ago, the then Governor-General Lord Gowrie VC said that when people leave this place, they must utter never again, never again." It was a very powerful speech today, James, but I guess reflecting in his role there as the director of that great institution in Canberra.
Yeah, look, Matt understands this better than most. He's just come from London and from Europe, where he's walked those battlefields and he's seen those places where so much blood was shed, and he's seen the graves of Australian soldiers, literally, as was famously said, marking out our national interests. The War Memorial is that place. It's a special place that really compels you to stop thinking and start thinking about your everyday struggles and start thinking about some of those titanic struggles we've had. And I think what's great to see at the moment is we have such a broad discussion about veterans and war in our country at the moment. It's become a much more sophisticated discussion over the last 5 years and a much more educated discussion too, I think.